Hey movie fans, Dimitri Panos here, and today I'm putting a movie that's almost 50 years old under the cinescope. Yes, I said almost 50 years later, Jaws still has teeth. Look, I don't know what else can be said or written about Jaws that already hasn't been said or written about. The term blockbuster was created to describe the amount of people who literally lined up around a block to get into a theater to watch the movie, or how the movie changed the release and distribution of movies forever. The shark breaking down, a 25-year-old director, Steven Spielberg, almost breaking down, Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss not getting along, or who actually wrote the movie, and who actually wrote Quint's Indianapolis monologue. In 2020, I even posted a video blog analogizing Jaws to COVID-19. And here I am again, talking about Jaws. My approach is going to be something different. I'm going to share with you my experience as a 9-year-old in 1975, going to see my first PG-rated movie, my first adult movie, my first horror movie. And I'm going to compare it to the release of today. In 1975, there was no way of escaping Jaws. Based off the Peter Benchley best-selling, or should I say, mega-selling novel, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing the book. To put it into today's perspective, remember how it was every time a new Harry Potter book came out? That was Jaws, without the dressing up, and it was only one book. When word came out it was being turned into a movie, well, I wasn't sure how it was possible, but the book became even more popular. At 9 years old, I loved reading almost as much as I loved going to the movies. Myself, along with my neighborhood friends, Sean and Harold, well, we were the first book club. Yes, before Oprah made it a thing, we actually read books together and talked about them as we read along. I remember the books we read together. It was Jaws, The Deep, another Peter Benchley novel, by the way, book 1984, and The Catcher in the Rye. We knew Jaws was being turned into a movie, and we couldn't wait. But my mother could. Up to that point, all the movies I had watched were G-rated. They were Disney movies, either animated or their live-action sort. I was 9. My mom didn't really want me to read the book, but I was a kid. I loved sharks and had read a lot about sharks, and even had a rubber shark I'd play with at bathy time. Jaws was just another shark book to me. Sure, there was some adult stuff in the novel, but I didn't care about any of that. All I really understood was when the shark ate people. By the time the movie was released, it was literally everywhere. Television ads, radio ads, newspaper ads. The book was in what seemed like every type of store: grocery stores, convenience stores like 7-Eleven or White Hen Pantries, native to New England, and of course, bookstores. No matter where you looked, there was that famous image of a shark about to chomp on an unaware naked lady swimming. There was actual debate in my house to whether or not I should see the movie. No surprise, my mom was against it. She knew how it would affect me, and to an extent, she was right. My argument? Well, I had read the book. I already knew what was going to happen. How could it actually scare me if I already knew where the scares were coming from? Well, my mom finally relented, and that Saturday I was to go to the movies with some family friends to see Jaws. Well, the movie had been out for a few weeks at that time, and the news was out that you'd have to wait in line to see the movie. There were actual photos of lines around buildings, and people were interviewed while in line to see what Jaws was all about. I can tell you this, nobody had waited in lines like that to see Freaky Friday. There are also photos of crowded beaches, and nobody was in the water. So we get to the theater, what we thought was early. It was about a half hour before a 1 o'clock showtime. Our place in line was around the theater. In fact, it was almost all the way around the theater. We had planned on catching that matinee show until an usher came out yelling, "The 1 o'clock show of Jaws is sold out. We'll be selling tickets for the 3 o'clock show about a half hour before showtime." Well, we had nothing going on, so we found payphones inside the theater, called our parents, and told them what was going on. We waited and started to move. We made it almost 3/4 of the way around the theater until said usher came out again exclaiming, "The 3 o'clock show of Jaws is sold out. We'll start selling tickets to the 5 o'clock show about a half hour before showtime." So what did we do? Well, we waited this long. We're almost there. We have to get in for the 5 o'clock show, right? So it was back to the payphones and popcorn and Coke for lunch. The line started moving again, and this time we made it to the box office. Tickets were in hand, and we were in. Another line, this time waiting to get into the theater. While in the lobby, I was studying the movie's poster, and I had noticed something I'd never seen before on a poster. At the very bottom, in a bold rectangle, were the words, "Maybe too intense for younger children." What the hell did that mean? I remind you, I was 9. So I asked my older friend, Charles, "Hey, what did intense mean?" He told me it means it's wicked good. Well, those words were in my vocabulary, and it made me all the more excited and a bit more nervous because I believed he might have been wrong with his definition, and we're about to be led in to watch a shark terrorize an area that was but a few hours away, Martha's Vineyard, or Cape Cod. That's where the movie was made. Well, we're finally let in. We found our seats, not totally in the back, but behind the middle of the theater and off to the right of the middle section. Yes, I do remember it well. The movie started and the movie theater filled with a fog. But it was not a fog from the waters of Cape Cod, but the fog of smoke from cigarettes. They still allowed smoking in movie theaters back in 1975, and Jaws was making these people smoke at least half a pack right there and then. Chrissy makes her run to the water while shedding her clothes, and she dives in. It need be noted, Chrissy's fate was of no surprise to anyone. She was the first. Ads said she was the naked swimmer on all of the artwork. Oh, and did I mention she was naked? Boobies! Hey, how old was I? Yeah, that's right, I was 9. This was like going to an R-rated movie for me at that age, except the movie was PG. The music begins, and she gets hit, and then dragged back and forth, all the while screaming in pain. She gets dragged to a buoy, and there's a break. Can she survive? Nope. She gets hit again, screaming for God to help her, and then she's pulled underwater. I was frozen. I had never watched such violence and death at the movies before. I mean, Gus, the field goal kicking mule, never kicked somebody's head off. Oh no, I was sweating, and now feared the rest of the movie. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen, and then, shortly after, I saw what was left of Chrissy. And not long after that, the most blood I had ever seen when Alex Kintner was attacked. To me, he was pulled down in a water fountain of blood. Alex Kintner, a boy who loved going in the water, not unlike me, and around my age, eaten, dead, My imagination was never as vivid as director Steven Spielberg's depiction. And the terror and suspense got worse. A head popped out of the hull of a boat, a whole leg floating, falling to the bottom of the ocean, leaving a trail of blood, a man spitting up gobs of blood as the shark bites down in his stomach. Why didn't we just go see Return of the Pink Panther instead? Because it was Jaws. The book never prepared me for what I saw. When it was over, I was woozy, numb, yet exhilarated. I never felt that way watching Herbie Rides Again, and I still couldn't believe a movie could make me feel the way I felt then. I went home and I had to try to play it cool. I had to pretend that I wasn't affected. I mean, I couldn't have my mom be right. So I said the movie was wicked awesome. Yeah, that's what I said as I tried to eat a hamburger on a stomach that was turned upside down. Well, it was bedtime time, and while being totally unable to sleep, I felt nauseous. I felt seasick, as if I were floating on a yellow raft in the ocean. Seasick and terrified in my own bed. That summer, like a lot of other people, I was afraid to go into almost anything that had water in it. Oceans, pools. Hell, Saturday Night Live's land shark skit wasn't so funny to me. That could happen. There was even the Carol Burnett show. They did a Jaws skit when someone was eaten in a bathtub. Well, no more baths for me. And all the while, I couldn't wait to watch the movie again. It was how I dipped my toes into a genre of movies I came to love: horror. When Jaws was available on VHS, I bought it. DVD, Laserdisc. It was a great Laserdisc box set, by the ways. It was on cable, and of course, I own many iterations of it on Blu-ray. So to say I've watched Jaws a ton of times is an understatement. Now, almost 50 years later, Universal, along with Steven Spielberg, are readying to release the movie in two different formats that the movie has never been seen in before: RealD 3D and IMAX. I already talked how wonderful it was to watch for the first time E.T. the Extraterrestrial in IMAX. Well, now I get to talk about Jaws, but this time I couldn't wait, and I was invited to a special press screening to watch the movie in RealD 3D. I RSVP'd as quick as I could. I didn't want it to sell out. The movie was displayed on a 20 by 40 foot screen with 7:1 Dolby Atmos. I was going to be, this was going to be a very different viewing experience than watching it on my flat screen plasma TV. And the glasses, a far cry from those cheap red and blue lensed ones that you used to have back in the 80s while watching, say, Jaws 3 in 3D. So I actually had clip-ons that were flip-ups. And when the movie started, I just flipped the lenses down, and all I can tell you is, wow, it was amazing. Jaws wasn't filmed to be a 3D movie, but this remaster is truly something to cinematically behold. The whole movie is immersive, not because of the horror of it all, but because I felt as if I were there, on the beach, in the water, on the orca. I was a witness, a silent interloper watching Hooper explaining what a great white shark is to a mare more interested in dollars than the safety of his islander folk. After about a quarter of the way into the movie, I had completely forgotten I was wearing these 3D glasses. The RealD laser projected 3D ensured Jaws was fully intact. There are no floating heads. Well, almost no floating heads. But there was no headache, and very important, there was no smoke. Watching the opening credits, I realized how pristine this remaster is. And the sound, again, wow. In those opening credits, you actually hear the cavitation of the water as the shark swims through that kelp. This time, I actually did know exactly what was going to happen, what line of dialogue was coming up, and I was never bored. I got sucked in. Everything around me, the audience, the theater, disappeared. There was only Amity and the events that took place in a little over a week's time. There's no way around it. Jaws is a classic. It changed the way the movie industry released movies and the way people went to the movies. Waiting in line and hearing the word sold out became the norm. Close Encounters, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then some. And almost 50 years later, a lot has changed in the way we watch movies, but Jaws remains a constant. It remains a cinematic experience, and I can tell you from my most recent experience, it still makes people scream. I wonder if they'll be going into their bathtubs anytime soon. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I hope you get to see Jaws in one of these two amazing formats, and I'd love to know your thoughts about it. And if perhaps it's your first time ever watching the movie on the big screen, well, I'll have some more reviews coming in the next days and weeks ahead. I really do appreciate you tuning into this. Thank you very much. It was just great for me to get to talk about one of my all-time favorite movies. Take care. Bye.